I'm Tiffany Rodius from the Guyana Revenue Authority. This week, we focus on steps you can take to legitimize your business operation, how to determine what expenses your business is allowed when computing your taxes, and the different types of TIN certificates. Focus on GRA begins now.
Do you know that the final tax on income from mining of gold has been reduced? Gold declared by an individual and valued by the central authority will be subject to withholding tax of 2% of gross proceeds for every value under US $1,100 and 2.5% of gross proceeds from gold valued above US $1,100. This measure took effect from June 1, 2022 following an amendment to the Income Tax Act. The amendment also makes provision for the said tax to be collected by the central authority, aggregated and remitted to the Commissioner General on or before the 14th of the new month following the month in which any payment and distribution were made. For more information, contact GRA's Tax Advisory Services section 227-6060 extension 8000.
Welcome to Focus on GRA, a program of information for taxpayer education. This week, we begin things a little differently, starting with our questions in focus. Our tax specialist joins us to answer your questions on registering as a taxpayer with the GRA.
This is your question in focus. Having a taxpayer identification number is very important. It allows persons to transact business with various organizations. Maybe you are doing a banking transaction, or you may be applying for a job. You will need a taxpayer identification number. Here to tell us about the requirements that an individual will need to submit to the Guyana Revenue Authority to obtain a taxpayer identification number is Ms. Coleman.
An individual must submit the following documents to acquire a taxpayer identification number or TIN. An original and a copy of a valid form of identification, that is, a national identification card or a passport. An original and a copy of proof of address, example, a light, phone, or water bill, bank statement, etc. A completed taxpayer registration form. This form is available at any GRA's office or on our website at www.gra.gov.gy. Cost of $1,000 if it is your first application. If the proof of address is not in your name, the person whose name the address is in must submit a form of identification, that is, a copy of a national identification card and a testimony form, which is available on the GRA's website or at any GRA's regional office. The testimony form establishes the relationship between you and the person permitting the use of their proof of address.
We also would like to let the general public know that our e-services platform is operational. We are encouraging persons to utilize this service. Ms. Coleman, can you let us know what are the requirements to sign up for e-services?
To create an e-services account for individuals, taxpayers will require a scanned copy of one of the following proof of identification via our e-services platform: a scanned copy of an active national identification card, bio page of a valid passport, or valid driver's license card. Most importantly, you must have a taxpayer identification number and an active email address.
Ms. Coleman, thank you so much for providing us with information about the requirements that an individual will need to submit in order to obtain a taxpayer identification number and sign up for e-services. Should you need additional information, please contact us on the numbers listed at the end of the program.
Need to apply for a taxpayer identification number or TIN from the GRA? Here is what you'll need: ID, passport or affidavit of identity, and proof of address. This can be a utility or internet bill, renter's receipt, or a mail bearing GPO's official stamp. Provide the original and copy of these along with the completed application form. It costs $1,000 for a new tin and $2,000 to reprint a lost or damaged tin. GRA, your partner in development. A self-employed person has to pay advance taxes. However, you are allowed to write off certain business expenses when calculating your advance tax. Manager of Tax Advisory, Narisha Bob Semple, explains more.
As a self-employed individual, you are required to submit an individual income tax return yearly. This statement must be accompanied by some other documents. Here to explain what documents should be submitted is Ms. Narisha Bob Semple, Manager, Tax Advisory Services Section.
When filing an income tax return, a self-employed person is expected to also include their financial statements. And the financial statement must be based on accrual basis, must be prepared on an accrual basis. That is, it must be for the particular year, January to December, in which they would have operated. They might have operated for half year, then it should state only from June to December, or if they operated from the January to June. So by law, when filing a return as a self-employed person, you must submit your income and expenditure statement, or it could be your trading and profit loss statement. You must also include a balance sheet. It's your assets, your liabilities, your capitals. Items should be stated thereon.
Individuals who have plant, machinery, building, and use them to acquire income must submit a wear and tear schedule.
You are also expected that if you're claiming for wear and tear on your assets, whether you're leasing that asset or whether you own that asset, you can claim wear and tear. So you must put that statement within the summaries that you're filing with your return.
The wear and tear schedule can be prepared using straight line or the written down value method. If the taxpayer uses the written down value method, then he or she can claim the full wear and tear. However, where the straight line method is used, only 90% wear and tear can be claimed as part of the deduction when computing your chargeable income. It must also be noted that the plant, machinery, or any other asset used in acquiring income must be owned or leased by the individual claiming for wear and tear. In accordance with Section 17(1), subparagraph 1 and 2 of the Income Tax Act, Chapter 80101, if the plant, machinery, equipment, or building does not belong to the individual carrying out the trade, business, profession, or vocation, but the full burden of the wear and tear falls upon them, that person shall claim for the deduction of wear and tear. On the other hand, the owner of the plant, machinery, equipment, or building can claim for the deduction of wear and tear once the full burden falls on them. The Guyana Revenue Authority expects that persons follow the depreciation rates outlined in the depreciation regulations as outlined in the Income Tax Act, Chapter 80101. As a business owner, there is a possibility of incurring losses. These losses can be claimed for. However, the individual must ensure they submit a loss schedule when they are submitting their individual income tax return. Additionally, every self-employed individual must pay close attention to the type of expenses that they claim when preparing their financial statement. We all know that every business operation will incur various expenses, but not all expenses should be included in the income and expenditure or profit and loss statement of an individual carrying on a business, trade, profession, or vocation. Ms. Bob Semple explains what expenses can be claimed.
You're entitled to claim all expenses. The law advocates all expenses wholly and exclusively incurred in the production of your income. That simply means once you had to expend any money in that particular year to produce the income that you have, you are allowed to claim that expense as part of your in your financial statements in reducing your income. So it's gross minus all of your expenses. And again, it's any expense that is wholly and exclusively incurred. It must be wholly. So it can't be partially in that sense. It must be for the purpose of that business operation only.
However, there may be cases where a self-employed person may need to apportion an expense.
If you're paying rent for your home and the business is being operated downstairs, it's a rental property in whole, right? You are allowed only a portion of that rental income, because if you're paying, let's say, $180,000 for entire property, but you have your shop or your store on the bottom flat of that building, then only you will have to portion that rent. That is why we would encourage persons that if it's possible to separate your expense so that it can be clear as to what portion of that expense represents your commercial activity as opposed to your living expense.
The Guyana Revenue Authority may disallow an expense claimed by a taxpayer. This may occur if the expense is one that is not allowed. Such expenses include domestic or private expenses, such as payment of school fees and grocery for the home, any capital employment in improvement, income tax, corporation tax, property tax, or any other identical or similar tax. It must be highlighted that when determining their chargeable income, self-employed individuals are not allowed as a deduction their NIS contribution. What this means is that their personal NIS is not a deductible expense. They are reminded that their financial statement must contain information relevant to the income earned from all trading activities. In view of this, if they have a shop and they are also involved in farming, both sources of income must be declared to the GRA. Notwithstanding, where an individual submits an individual income tax return which contains private expenses, the amount stated will be added to their net income and a recomputation will be done to determine their new chargeable amount. This will result in both the chargeable income and the tax payable increasing, thus giving rise to the amount of income tax payable. To prevent such occurrences, Ms. Bob Semple explains who individuals should seek assistance from when they are not sure how to complete their financial statements.
The GRA would have certified tax preparers. We have certified accountants who must obtain their tax practice certificate from the Guyana Revenue Authority. Those are the people who are mandated to prepare your books and records. That aside, if you know how to prepare your books and record, the GRA has no issues with that as a self-employed person. You might not, once you can do it, you do it. However, in filing your returns, if you do not understand the process, those persons who are certified by the GRA and their names are published in our gazettes, they are also published on the GRA's website. Just look for practice certificates and you will find all of those persons there who are expected to conduct business with the GRA on your behalf as a taxpayer. It's important to understand that those persons will guide you in the correct direction because they are so certified by the GRA.
And that is all for this week's Focus on GRA. To find out what your obligations to the GRA are as a business, you can visit our website. It's gra.gov.gy. You can also send us your inquiries via email at grapublicrelations@gmail.com or taxadvisory@gra.gov.gy. And follow us on our social media pages for up-to-date tax-related information. Thank you for watching. I'm Tiffany Rodias. Until next time.